Shakespeare is very difficult. It's, I think, probably the most challenging role an actor can have in the English-speaking language.
It's because sometimes we get hung up on the language part of it, I think. The stories are basic stories. The characters are fairly recognizable characters. The difficulty is that we use the original text, and the original text is got vocabulary, sentence structure, syntax, grammar. Everything is very different from the way in which we speak now. And because we're not going to change that stuff to make it quote-unquote modern English, the actor has to find some way of accessing the basicness of the stories and the characters, even though the text is something very different than what he or she is used to in regular life. And that's what makes it so difficult, I think. Once you get through that, once you find a system that helps you to understand and really break open the text so that you become familiar with the text, I think, in some ways, acting Shakespeare can be even easier than acting like Arthur Miller. There are different challenges, totally. There are certain things about Miller's writing that is much easier. There are certain things about Shakespeare's writing that is easier, and that's, I think, the character stuff is all there. He gives you everything you need. You just have to pull it out. Whereas something like modern American drama, not so much modern. The modern stuff is a little bit easier than I think the mid-century stuff.
I think Arthur Miller's characters are sort of clouded, and you have to figure out to figure out their internal reason, and that's really left to your own devices unless the director has
totally.
For you.
And that's the one of the big debates with. I don't know if it's so much of a debate, really. One of the differences between American naturalism and something like classical or Shakespearean sort of plays is the concept of subtext. American naturalism, and it starts really with Chekhov and the way in which he wrote his stories. The characters don't say what they mean, and so you got to find what they mean, but still be true to the text. Whereas with Shakespeare, the characters are saying what they mean, and he's giving you clues as to what the interior life of the character is. So that's why I say, in a certain sense, once you can break open the text and the language, you have a lot of clues for how to attack the character.
But for so many people, that text and that language is an almost insurmountable barrier. How do you do that? How do you make that natural when you are on stage? Or when you're performing in the park?
For me as the actor, I know every single thing I'm saying, so I do a lot of research. If I'm reading, for example, if I'm going through King Lear and I find vocabulary that I don't understand, I go and look it up and I make sure that I know exactly what the playwright meant. There are clues in the first folio text. Some scholars think there are clues in the first folio text that give you an idea of how to present intention, like the placement of commas and colons and semicolons and periods and word order and the scansion or the number of accents and unaccented syllables in a line give you hints as to how the line should be played. So once you break those things open, then when you kind of like pile all this stuff on to the point where when you get to the performance, you didn't forget it. And then if you've done your work as the actor and you've really worked on all of this stuff by breaking open the text yourself so that it becomes natural in yourself, when it comes time to perform it, it comes out as that really natural way in which the people would be speaking, even though it's not natural. It's poetry for most part.